Hello and welcome to Clarkenomics. In this video, we're going to talk about how market economies answer the big economic questions and also prioritize economic goals. So starting with the three questions there, we've got Adam Smith on the right to keep us company. How do market economies decide what is going to get produced? So, whatever consumers demand and firms supply, there's your answer right there. Because as we learned in a previous video about market economies, the government's not involved in market economies at all. It's all about households and firms making the decisions. So firms, they're only going to be interested in producing things that consumers want. So that's what they're going to make, things that are going to make the firms the most money. So consumers demand things and firms supply those things because they have an incentive to make money, right? They're acting in their own self-interest, but despite that, we get the things that we want. So because of that, market economies are constantly changing, right? As consumers' tastes change, we don't necessarily have to be talking about like food tastes, but just their preferences, the things that they want are always changing. And firms are trying to anticipate what we're going to want. So, if you think about a decade or so ago, innovators said, oh, we could make this phone, that is like a phone that people can touch the screen and we'll put apps on it and all these things, right? And within the past decade, phones have been revolutionized from flip screens, I guess a little bit more than a decade, but flip screens to these amazing phones that we have today. So markets are constantly changing and innovating to better meet consumers' demands because, again, firms are trying to earn revenue. So that's how they decide what to produce. It's whatever consumers want. Is anything off limits? Let's think about it. No, because there is no government saying, no, you can't make that. How to produce stuff? Well, with this one, because firms are competing with each other, right? Competition's there. Firms want to make things in the most efficient way possible. The government's not producing anything. The government's not even telling firms how to produce stuff. Firms are constantly competing for customers. They want to earn the most revenue, and they don't really care about anybody else. So firms are going to produce stuff in the most efficient way they can possibly think of, right? Now, with that comes innovation. If you want to get a leg up on the competition and beat them and drive them out of business, you're going to innovate, you're going to try to do things better. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do things in a moral or kind way, but they're going to do things in a way that's going to make them the most money. So it's all about efficiency. And like the what question, this can change pretty quickly. Firms are always changing up things to try to do things better. Because if they don't, they die, right? A business that's not competing well is going to be out of business soon. And then finally, we've got for whom. If you want something in a market economy, you'd better be willing and able to pay for it. In a previous video, we talked about willingness to pay, right? You have to value something enough to pay for it. But also in a market economy, you got to have the cash. You got to be able to pay for the thing. If you can't afford it, you don't get it. Sad. So that's how a market economy, again, a pure market economy, no government, which does not really exist in the real world, but go with it, answers the big three economic questions. And that now leads us into a discussion of the goals. So the way I've organized this is we're going to talk about the goals that they prioritize. We're going to call these like advantages. For instance, economic efficiency. The question is, are market economies efficient? And the answer is, yeah, they're super efficient, right? Because firms aren't wasting anything. They're always producing what consumers want. They don't want to waste their time or their money making things that consumers don't want. So they're always changing things up. They're trying to minimize their costs, again, because they have to be competitive. And households, think about them too. They're all selling labor. No one's just going to give them money. If you want to work, if you want to earn income, you got to be productive and you got to be efficient. No one's going to be there to hold your hand. It's up to you. So market economies are highly efficient. Growth. Let's think about what causes economic growth. It's all about innovation. In a market economy, is there innovation? Oh yeah, there totally is. So because firms are in competition with each other, they're going to innovate. They're going to try to do things in better ways. That creates growth right there. That shifts the production possibilities frontier outwards. We like that. At the same time, there's a lot of freedom in a market economy, allowing entrepreneurs the opportunity to innovate, to try to earn a buck, to do things in a new way and innovate. Which brings us to freedom. Well, market economies are very free, right? There are few restrictions or no restrictions on how a person can earn their money or spend their money. It's totally up to them. No government involvement. There it is. Then we've got equity. This one's a little trickier because remember, equity is a synonym for fairness, and fairness is a wholly subjective term. But here's what's fair about a market economy. If you're more productive than everybody else, you earn the most income. If society values what you do, you're going to get more money. So work harder or work in a more productive way, earn more money. Um, and if you're not productive, you're not going to free ride. You're not going to just sit there and let other people work hard and you're going to earn money off them, right? The strongest survive, and the people who aren't working, they don't. So in that way, if you view equity in that way, that could be an advantage of a market economy. But there's also disadvantages, as I'm sure some of you are thinking. One, security. Remember what we meant by economic security. It's not like safety from attacks. It's, do you have the things you need to survive? Well, how do you get the things you need to survive in a market economy, such as food and shelter and stuff? Well, you got to be able to work for it. If you're not productive and you're in a market economy, you're not earning income, because earning is solely based on the factor that you sell, which might be labor. So there is no safety net. There's no government to watch your back for you. If you're not productive, you don't get income. You don't get income, you can't buy stuff. So there's nobody out there other than random people being kind to make sure that you have economic security. Also equity. What? That's here again, right? It was an advantage, but let's look at it from a disadvantage standpoint. Because there's no equality of outcomes. Some people will be very rich. Other people will be super poor. And again, you might be thinking, well, okay, those rich people work harder than the people who are poor. Fine. But what if something happens to you? What if, you have an accident or something and all of a sudden you're hurt and you can't work, right? Maybe it wasn't your fault even. If you can't be productive, you can't get what you need and you're going to be struggling. And to some people, that's going to sound unfair because, well, it wasn't your fault you got hurt, but regardless, only the strong survive in a market economy. And then finally, let's think economic stability. Now, this one's a little less obvious. Because there's no government in the economy, there's no government keeping the economy on track. The economy just kind of goes where it will. Markets, buyers and sellers are driving the economy every which way in a way that's best for themselves. So this is unbridled, unlimited self-interest. And, according to Adam Smith, that can be a good thing and generate positive results for everybody. But if it goes too far, it can be destructive. And when we look at mixed economies, we're going to see why and some of the things that governments do to try to limit that self-interest from being a little bit too destructive. So there are definitely some good things about market economies. There are definitely some bad things about market economies, and you kind of have to judge those for yourself, remembering that there is no such thing as a pure market economy. There are just degrees to which a country can be a market economy. So thanks for watching.